In the blissful years of our 40-year-long marriage, I, at 64, and my wife, at 62, have cultivated a relationship that transcends the ordinary. We are not just financially secure and in good health, but also proud parents of two wonderful daughters who have blessed us with three amazing grandchildren. Our journey together goes beyond mere companionship. We are deeply connected, reflecting upon which, I have come to realize that we are not just best friends but true halves, whose bond even younger couples would envy. However, you might be wondering what could possibly go wrong in such an ideal scenario. Allow me to recount a particularly memorable Saturday, when the sun was shining, infusing the day with joyful anticipation. I was eagerly looking forward to a golf game with my friends, the highlight of my week, a welcome respite from the monotony of everyday life to indulge in quality time on the golf course. With enthusiasm, I bid farewell to our home, my golf clubs in tow, a broad smile adorning my face, completely oblivious to the unexpected turn of events that lay ahead. As I impatiently approached the golf course, a sudden realization dawned upon me. I had forgotten my trusty golf club repair tool, an indispensable accessory for any avid golfer. My friends were expecting me to bring it, yet in the haste of departure, it slipped my mind. Frustrated by my oversight, I made a swift decision to rectify my mistake and hastily turned the car around, driving back home. Upon parking the car and stepping out, I noticed Victor standing at the front door, ready to lend a helping hand in any situation. It's truly remarkable how such a young man can exude reliability and self-confidence, and we are sincerely grateful to have him in our lives. While I had sought his assistance on previous occasions, his unexpected presence today piqued my curiosity. Had his wife requested something unbeknownst to me, or had she invited him over without my knowledge? Curious, yet cautiously, I entered the house, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. To my utter horror, I was met with the sight of my partially dressed wife and Victor, shirtless, emerging from the guest bathroom. Their astonished faces betrayed their surprise at my sudden appearance. Although there were no overt signs of impropriety, the palpable aura of intimacy that hung in the air left little room for doubt. I barely managed to avoid stumbling upon a potentially compromising situation. Finding myself unexpectedly caught in the delicate web of home circumstances, my wife inquired about the reason for my early return, yet I chose to ignore her and instead directly addressed Victor. It was an unprecedented situation, considering I had always regarded him as a trustworthy and dependable individual, yet his presence under such circumstances left me bewildered and disconcerted. In the tense silence that ensued, Victor hesitated, his gaze shifting uneasily between myself and my wife, as if grappling with the weight of his own culpability. And as the gravity of the situation dawned upon him, his features contorted with a palpable sense of guilt, betraying the facade of composure he had so meticulously crafted. In a voice tinged with remorse, Victor attempted to offer an explanation, stumbling over his words as he sought to rationalize his presence in my absence. Yet, his feeble excuses fell upon deaf ears, drowned out by the deafening silence that enveloped us like a shroud. In that moment of profound disillusionment, I found myself grappling with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, a potent cocktail of betrayal, anger, and disbelief. And as the reality of my wife's infidelity dawned upon me, I felt as though the very foundation of our marriage had been shaken to its core. In the aftermath of that fateful encounter, I found myself adrift in a sea of uncertainty, grappling with the painful realization that the idyllic facade of our marriage had been shattered beyond repair. And as I navigated the treacherous waters of heartbreak and betrayal, I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and obstacles, yet I remained steadfast in my resolve to confront them head-on. For though the scars of betrayal may linger, I refuse to let them define me, for I am more than the sum of my broken dreams and shattered illusions. And as I embark upon this journey of self-discovery and redemption, I take solace in the knowledge that, no matter how dark the night may seem, the dawn of a new day awaits, promising hope and renewal in its wake. The well-mannered young man stood before me, hesitantly attempting to explain his presence, while my wife, with a sudden outburst, intervened, raising her voice in his defense. She claimed she had called him to service the pool, to which I expressed surprise, doubting the necessity of cleaning the pool so soon after it had been attended to the day before. I could see her struggling to regain control of the situation, her attempts to rationalize sounding feeble and unconvincing. Meanwhile, Victor appeared utterly stunned, as if he had been caught off guard by a sudden revelation. Pointing squarely at Victor, I asserted my awareness of his actions, despite my suspicions being based on limited evidence. I made it clear that any further intrusion into my home would not be tolerated, and I would not hesitate to take extreme measures if necessary. With haste, Victor, now properly attired, retreated to his car and vanished, despite my wife's pleas for me to desist from accusing her. However, her protests only fueled my determination. It was imperative to recognize that our marriage, as previously mentioned, had always been built on a foundation of trust. Until this unsettling incident, I had never harbored any doubts regarding her integrity. Yet, the tension between us was palpable, evident in the strained dynamics of our interaction. Her defensive demeanor and attempts to deflect blame only served to confirm my suspicions. As our disagreement escalated into a heated argument, a common occurrence in our relationship, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this situation than met the eye. Her choice of attire for sunbathing, typically modest, raised further questions. The transparent bra and underwear she wore seemed incongruous with the cool weather conditions, leading me to question the veracity of her explanation. Despite her efforts to instill doubt and uncertainty in my mind through intimidation tactics, I remained resolute in my convictions, unwavering in my trust in my intuition. The thought crossed my mind of the length of this ongoing saga, considering Victor's presence in our lives for the past 3 years, casting doubt on the duration of her potential manipulation and deceit. Our differences culminated in a sharp exchange, a familiar pattern in our interactions, yet this time, the stakes felt higher, the rift between us deeper. As we grappled with the fallout of this unsettling revelation, I couldn't help but ponder the implications of what had transpired, uncertain of where our relationship would go from here. In rare moments of respite amidst the turmoil, my wife stubbornly denied all accusations, as friends called to inquire about my lateness, urging me to join them. Despite contemplations of seeking professional help, I opted to proceed with my planned round of golf, hoping the diversion would grant me clarity of mind amidst the chaos. Yet, as I navigated the golf course, memories of the past relentlessly resurfaced, casting doubt on the authenticity of our bond, leading me to question whether her fidelity had ever wavered, whether she had manipulated me through cunning means. It dawned on me that I had remained oblivious to these suspicions throughout our marriage, blinded by love and naivety, unwilling to confront the unsettling truths lurking beneath the surface. Delving deeper into introspection, I revisited a distinct memory from our premarital days, reframing it through the lens of maturity and experience. During our college years, our relationship burgeoned, seemingly unique and special. Yet upon reflection, I discerned subtle signs that had eluded me in my youth. As I connected these fragments of memory to recent events, a troubling pattern emerged, suggesting the presence of multiple men, including my former best friend, in her past. Decades may have passed since those tumultuous times, but the weight of these memories refused to dissipate, haunting me relentlessly, robbing me of precious sleep. Suffocated by anxiety, my mind raced, grappling with the implications of her denials and the stark realities they concealed. Even as my wife adamantly refuted any impropriety, I couldn't shake the unsettling image ingrained in my memory. A bikini-clad figure beside our grandson's friend, a scene that begged further inquiry concealed beneath layers of deception and half-truths. Amidst her protests and deflections, I couldn't help but feel a gnawing sense of betrayal, as she roped our innocent children into the web of deceit, withholding crucial details and distorting the truth. The burden of uncertainty weighed heavily upon me, urging me to confront the shadows of our past, to unravel the tangled web of secrets that threatened to unravel the fabric of our once cherished union. Was overwhelmed by a flood of emotions, feeling the weight of years of deception bearing down on me like a relentless storm. It was a stark realization that perhaps I had been living in a facade, oblivious to the cracks in our relationship that had been widening over time. Despite her attempts to portray me as the irrational one in our later years, I struggled to convey to our children and grandson the nagging sense of unease that gnawed at me. How could I explain the scene I stumbled upon, a scene that shattered the illusion of trust and intimacy that had once defined our marriage? The ensuing weeks were a blur of emotional turmoil, marked by sleepless nights and a profound sense of isolation. My once sturdy frame began to wither under the weight of stress and uncertainty, and the mental toll it took on me was immeasurable. Unlike my wife, who possessed a natural assertiveness, I found myself ill-equipped to navigate the tumultuous waters of conflict. I preferred peace and harmony, yet this situation forced me to confront uncomfortable truths and face the harsh reality of our fractured relationship. Seeking solace in individual therapy sessions, I grappled with the concept of mindfulness, attempting to cultivate a sense of presence and acceptance in the midst of chaos. Yet, despite my best efforts, I found myself struggling to master this elusive art, my mind consumed by thoughts of betrayal and deceit. But then, in a moment of clarity, I realized that I could no longer suppress my emotions or sweep the past under the rug. Summoning the courage to confront my wife about her infidelity, I braced myself for her reaction, knowing that it would irreversibly alter the course of our relationship. Her initial denial and defensiveness only served to deepen the rift between us, her desperate attempts to shift blame further eroding the foundation of trust that once bound us together. It was a painful reckoning, a stark reminder that the truth, no matter how painful, must be confronted if we are to heal and move forward. Overwhelmed by a flood of emotions, I found myself at a breaking point, experiencing a breakdown like never before. Collapsing to the floor, tears streaming uncontrollably, each breath felt like an insurmountable challenge, and even the act of speaking seemed beyond my capabilities. Yet, amidst this turmoil, her reaction was unexpected, catching her off guard as she knelt down to embrace me tightly, offering comfort as I gradually regained composure. In her arms, she vehemently denied any wrongdoing, assuring me of her commitment to addressing our issues. She expressed confusion over my emotional state, fearing I might unjustly abandon her despite lacking concrete evidence of her actions, as she remained steadfast in her denial. As we delved into the details of the unfolding events, discrepancies in our recollections emerged, particularly regarding crucial moments in time and specific events. The realization that our memories differed, despite our decades-long companionship, was surprising, leaving me to ponder the extent of her involvement and the depth of her deception. Although she listened attentively, her silence spoke volumes, hinting at an underlying unease as she grappled with the weight of my revelations. There was a palpable tension as she cautiously danced around the topic of confession, hinting at the possibility of revealing more under the guise of seeking therapeutic intervention. Contemplating the potential impact of her full disclosure, I couldn't help but recall Jack Nicholson's iconic line from A Few Good Men, "You want the truth, but you can't handle it." The prospect of confronting the reality of her infidelity filled me with a mixture of dread and curiosity, amplifying the anguish of my current predicament. Moreover, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal regarding her involvement of our children in this tangled web of deceit. Despite our long history together, I began to question whether I truly knew her at all. Determined to prove my sanity and her deception, I resorted to covertly recording our conversations, driven by an unwavering resolve to uncover the truth. It was in a moment of desperation that I conceived the idea of reaching out to my former best friend, suspected of being her accomplice in infidelity. Despite not having spoken in over 2 decades, I obtained his number and dialed it with trembling hands, the weight of the situation bearing down on me as I braced myself for the conversation that lay ahead. Summoning the courage to disclose the purpose of my call, I struggled to maintain a steady voice, grappling with the weight of the passing years as I embarked on this unexpected journey down memory lane. Engulfed by a moment of silence, I sensed his cautious apprehension, as if he were mentally retracing the steps of our past friendship. When he finally spoke, his tone was tinged with wariness, prompting me to take a deep breath before revealing my identity as David. His disbelief echoed through the phone lines, questioning whether it was truly me on the other end. As we navigated the awkward dance of forced pleasantries, attempting to condense 2 decades of life into mere minutes, the pang of lost time hung heavily in the air. Yet, despite the weight of the conversation, I knew there was no room for delay. Summoning every ounce of courage left within me, I broached the subject of Anna, his memories of her carrying a palpable sense of concern. With a heavy heart, I revealed the tragic news of her passing, allowing a moment of silence for the weight of my words to settle in. Then, with trembling voice, I recounted her final confession, laying bare the betrayal, the lies, and the years lost in the shadow of his infidelity. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line, followed by a heavy sigh, as the weight of his guilt became palpable. My own voice choked with resentment and betrayal. I struggled to comprehend how my closest friend could have inflicted such pain upon me. Yet, even amidst the turmoil of emotions, I knew I had to capture his confession, a pivotal moment that would force my wife to confront the truth. As his sobs echoed through the receiver, his remorse poured forth in waves, each word laden with the burden of his regret. In that moment, the stark realization of our shattered friendship pierced my heart, leaving behind a profound sense of loss. Despite his pleas for forgiveness, the wounds he had inflicted ran deep, leaving scars that would not easily heal. With a heavy heart and a sense of finality, I ended the call, the weight of his confession hanging heavily in the air. Our once unbreakable bond had crumbled before my eyes, leaving behind a trail of broken trust and irreparable damage. Upon uttering the last words, bidding farewell to John, a whirlwind of emotions engulfed me, leaving me in a state of turmoil. While the incontrovertible proof brought a semblance of solace, the sting of betrayal continued to gnaw at my heart. As my wife returned, I summoned the courage to play the recording, laying bare the tangled web of deception she had woven. A shadow of profound embarrassment crossed her face as the truth washed over her, shattering her denials. With tears welling in her eyes, she implored me to withhold the recording from our children, bargaining for her confession regarding the other alleged affairs. Recognizing the necessity for evidence, I meticulously documented every detail of her admission, sealing our agreement with a heavy heart. Following her heart-wrenching confession, I suggested a period of separation, allowing each of us time for introspection and reevaluation of our decades-long union. Having weathered over 4 decades together, I, a 64-year-old, and she, a 62-year-old, once believed in the strength of our bond. However, the discovery of her connection with our grandson's friend shattered that illusion, casting a pall over our shared history. Despite her vehement denials, I remained steadfast, armed with irrefutable evidence of her infidelity. Surprisingly, during our discourse, she proposed an amicable divorce, seeking to shift the blame onto my suspicions rather than her indiscretions. Unbeknownst to her, I had meticulously recorded every admission, knowing that the truth must prevail. Upon revealing the recording to my children, they began to see their mother in a different light, grappling with the extent of her betrayal. However, met with resistance from my wife, who waged war in a bid to claim everything in the event of a divorce, I remained resolute. At my age, material possessions hold little significance compared to the love and support of my children, along with the legacy I hope to leave behind. Despite the pressure to salvage our 4-decade relationship, I found myself yearning for the authenticity and honesty that had eluded us for so long. After 3 arduous months, we finalized our divorce, with Anna moving in with her daughter as I sold the house, dividing the proceeds. Though the journey ahead may be fraught with challenges, I am determined to embrace the truth and forge ahead with newfound clarity and resolve. As I embarked on my world travels, my children shared with me the news of Anna's suffering, her deep descent into depression, and the stroke that left her paralyzed. Anger momentarily consumed me, but I composed myself to continue the call, seeking answers from Amy, my sister-in-law, regarding her invitation to that man at the hospice. Amy confirmed the invitation, though she initially tried to dissuade Elaine, expressing uncertainty about her motives. Surprised, I questioned Susie's potential presence, but Amy clarified that Elaine deemed the 3-year-old too young for their discussion. Deciding to drop Susie off at her parents' place, Amy and I journeyed to the hospice together, where we were warmly welcomed by Nurse Cindy, who shared positive news about Elaine's day. Upon entering Elaine's room, Amy assured me, setting the tone for our conversation. Despite the peaceful atmosphere, discomfort gripped me upon seeing Trevor seated by the headboard. Opting for a handshake over a kiss, I settled beside Amy, opposite Trevor. Elaine initiated the conversation with gratitude for our presence, acknowledging the awkwardness but stressing their shared desire for Sue's well-being. I reaffirmed Sue's importance, casting a questioning glance at Trevor. Delays ensued before Elaine expressed her struggle with infertility, praising Amy's support through testing and IVF. She lauded Amy as a hero and aunt to Sue, confident in her continued care. Transitioning to the thornier issue of her relationship with Trevor, Elaine acknowledged my pain, attributing her actions to desperation amid conception struggles. Despite Amy's assurances about my participation count, skepticism lingered as I glanced at her shrugged response. Elaine recounted Trevor's kindness during her emotional lunchtime breakdowns, leading to a close friendship over months. My disbelief was evident as I snorted and rolled my eyes, expressing skepticism. Acknowledging the potential strain on our relationship, Elaine's explanation unfolded, revealing a narrative of vulnerability and misplaced trust. Yet, doubts persisted, challenging the foundation of our bond. Elaine continued, revealing her desperation and willingness to try anything, even with Trevor's assistance. I met her explanation with a disdainful look, suggesting he should have stayed clear. She elaborated on her motives, initially driven by the desire to improve her chances of conception. However, as time passed, she confessed that she and Trevor had fallen in love, describing it as an incredible experience. Elaine expressed her desire to find a way for all three of us to coexist in her life, hoping to keep both me and Trevor involved. I questioned her audacity, wondering why she thought I would ever agree to such a situation. Elaine admitted her fear of divorce when I discovered her affair, noting that I had become her hero for supporting her throughout the in vitro fertilization process. Despite considering divorce, she emphasized my prioritization of our child and my decision to stay, interpreting it as a sign of enduring love. With tears in her eyes, she asked one last favor to allow Trevor to be part of Susie's life and grant him joint custody after she was gone. Surprised, I exchanged glances with Amy, firmly refusing Elaine's request. Her astonished expression hinted at her hope for a more understanding response. She insisted, asserting that I had to give Trevor joint custody. Then came the bombshell. Susie was not my biological child. Elaine explained her plan to conceive with each of us, using Trevor's sample for IVF first and intending to use mine for a second attempt in the future. However, her cancer diagnosis thwarted that plan. I turned to Amy, raising my eyebrows in disbelief, and she confirmed Elaine's account, expressing confidence in her parental rights to Susie. Trevor, wearing a smirk, prompted Amy's clarification. A acid deoxyribonucleic test wouldn't support his claim. Elaine had tried to persuade Amy to use Trevor's sample, but she had refused. The revelation left me reeling, grappling with a newfound understanding of our family's complex dynamics. Embarking on world travels, I received distressing news from our children about Anna's spiraling shame, descent into deep depression, and subsequent stroke that left her paralyzed. An initial surge of anger washed over me, but I quickly regained composure to continue the call. Seeking answers from Amy, my sister-in-law, about her invitation to a certain man to meet us at the hospice. Amy confirmed the invite but admitted she had initially discouraged Elaine from extending it, unsure of Elaine's motives. I expressed surprise at the possibility of Susie's presence, to which Amy clarified that Elaine deemed the 3-year-old too young to be privy to their discussion. Deciding to drop Susie off at her grandparents' before proceeding to the hospice, Amy and I made our way there together. Upon arrival, we were warmly greeted by Nurse Cindy, who shared that Elaine was having a relatively good day, using the morphine pump less frequently. As we entered Elaine's room, Amy assured me that everything would be all right. The room exuded a peaceful atmosphere, with a serene garden view. Yet my discomfort grew exponentially upon spotting Trevor seated by the headboard. Opting for a handshake rather than a kiss, I took a seat with Amy on the opposite side of the bed from Trevor. Elaine began by expressing gratitude for our presence, acknowledging the awkwardness of the situation but emphasizing their shared desire for Susie's well-being. Reiterating Susie's status as my top priority, I directed a questioning gaze at Trevor, prompting Elaine to delay her explanation. Initially thanking both Amy and me for our support, Elaine delved into her struggle with infertility and lauded Amy as her hero and Susie's wonderful aunt. She expressed confidence in Amy's continued love and care for Susie and her role in Susie's upbringing. Elaine then broached the more complicated matter, acknowledging the pain her relationship with Trevor had caused me. Expressing my irritation, I queried her motives for cheating on me with him. Elaine attributed her actions to desperation during their conception struggles, despite Amy's assurance about my fertility. Glancing at Amy, who simply shrugged, I expressed disbelief. Elaine detailed their friendship's evolution, describing how Trevor, a coworker from the adjacent office, had offered solace during her emotional distress. Over time, their bond deepened into love, an experience Elaine deemed incredible. She expressed a desire to find a way for Trevor and me to coexist in Susie's life, admitting her fear of divorce upon revealing her affair. Elaine inquired about her eggs, prompting Amy to reveal their storage in the clinic's freezer under anonymous labels. Amy clarified that they might be used by other patients needing an egg donor in the future, with no involvement from Trevor. Despite the circumstances, Amy and I conveyed our love for Elaine, offering her a chance to make amends before her passing. Emphasizing the importance of making her remaining days special for Susie, we presented Elaine with a choice in how she wished to be remembered in Susie's eyes, highlighting the opportunity to portray herself as a hero,